What's going on, fam, and welcome back. Today's video is pretty special to me because it is actually a response video to a question that somebody asked a few weeks ago. Zyrell McKnight, I hope I said that right, asked about the requirements, the educational requirements to become a school psychologist. I was really happy to receive that question because I love feedback from you guys and I want to make sure that I'm giving you something that you actually want to hear about. So you kind of sent me on a journey, Zyrell, because I don't know the last time I've been in a classroom. It's been almost 10 years since I have been in an actual classroom as a student. So I had to go digging to find out what the requirements actually are for the state of New York, which is where I am certified as a school psychologist, as well as my program, which is Alfred University's School of Counseling and School Psychology. So I figured the most logical way to start would be to just talk about how I became a school psychologist and what I remember. And then I'm going to fill in some of the blanks from what I forgot with what I looked up and what I researched, okay? So I actually did not initially go to college thinking that I was going to be a school psychologist or any type of mental health provider at all. I entered college thinking that I was going to be a teacher. I had really great teachers in high school in particular, but really just through school, I really can't find that I've had a really particularly negative experience with school. And so, you know, I guess I emulated that and I wanted to be that. And so I entered school wanting to be a teacher for young children. So I entered an early childhood education program. I went to Claflin University, which is an HBCU, historically black college, in South Carolina as an education major. About halfway through college, I realized that I did not want that. I was like, I don't want to. I worked in a daycare and I just kind of got a taste. And being a daycare provider is not the same as being a teacher, but it was the aspects that I found comparable to teaching that I really was like, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to be in a classroom all day, every day. I didn't want to be around little kids all day. I just kind of realized very abruptly, really, that that's not what I wanted for a career. Midway through college, I'm kind of like racking my brain. What am I gonna do? Thankfully, at the time, I'm not sure if things are the same, you had to declare a major and then you had to declare a concentration. I think that's what it was called. You had to declare a concentration. I was an education major with a concentration in history. And I really loved history, which is why I think that was another reason why I wanted to be a teacher, because I loved history. I still do. I love kind of digging back into the annals of time. People just be peopling, no matter what year it is, no matter what the situation is, people just be peopling. And so it's always interesting to kind of find those connections. And so it was always about the story for me when it came to history. It was always about the story in history. And so that became my official major. After that, it was like, what are you going to do with a degree in history though, right? Because you don't hear anybody saying, I'm a history engineer, right? What are you going to do besides teach? So I researched a bunch of different careers and I came up with school psychology. And I mean, immediately it just spoke to me, the description of the career. You don't live the same day twice. That was kind of what really drew me to that. It was like, I'm not going to be stuck. And shout out to teachers. I ain't got no problem. Teachers, I love y'all, okay? But it was like, I'm not going to be stuck doing one thing every day, all day, and I, you know, the autonomy of it spoke to me again, and the ability to, and I could still be an educator, and I could still spread knowledge and information, and I could still, and I like that there was kind of a detective side of it because we do evaluations. Y'all, I got other videos where I talk about what we do, so I'm not going to dig too deep into that, but I want to get into the actual process and the journey that it took for me to get there. So I was accepted into the doctoral program at Alfred University. And so my journey is a little bit different because typically you would get your master's first and then you would go to work and then you would decide whether you wanted a doctorate. And this program actually just put me on the fast track to doctoral work. As you can see, the course load is very, very heavy in the beginning and becomes more spread out, or appears to be more spread out over time. And it's not that you have more time on your hands typically, it's just that the tasks themselves take up more time and concentration. And so you've gotten all of the foundational things out of the way in the first year, and then the second and third year are more focused on putting that groundwork into practice. I also want you to take note of the total credits that are obtained throughout the program, and then later when we talk about state requirements, you'll see how relevant that is to that. Another thing is you want to make sure that you are aware of all the assessment requirements. So in my program, we had to do something at the end of the first year called qualifying exams. And that was essentially like your big end of year exam that culminated all the information that you learned during the semester. And if you didn't pass the exam the first time, you had to come back and defend. And if you didn't pass your defense, then you weren't allowed to come back the following year. So just make sure you're fully versed on all of the requirements, including assessments, including prerequisites. Well, the first year is really just about foundations of basically everything. In cognition, how do people learn, norm reference testing, which tends to be a very big part of being a school psychologist. Field experience is the practicum. So every week I would travel to a school and I would shadow a school psychologist, Dr. Wolfgang, who is probably to this day one of my favorite people. I liked year 2 because that was the year that they introduced the clinical practicum. So my first year I did a field practicum, which is where I was in the school. The second year we did a clinical practicum. There was a clinic on campus and we would actually see students and local families as therapists under supervision. So I guess now would be a good time to stop and talk about the 4 main parts of school psychology: behavior intervention, academic intervention, evaluation or assessment, and counseling. So most school psychologists will have been trained in all 4 of those areas. And depending on where you go to work, all of that training will be put to use, or 1 or 2 of those trainings would be put to use. As a school psychologist in the New York City Department of Education, it was basically evaluation and that was it. But I have worked in other districts or interned in other districts where there was a wider variety of training. And so I saw more of the behavior intervention side, more of the academic intervention side, more of the counseling side. And I knew then that that's the kind of school psychologist that I wanted to be. Accredited programs are not going to set you up for failure. Honestly, in order to complete our academic requirements, we were essentially completing state requirements for certification. So I did keep a lot of my textbooks. Okay, I had these really big bins of books and papers, and I looked at them last year and it was like, I am not gonna look at these again. Like, I'm not gonna need these again. And then of course I get asked the question about the requirements. So my bad, I don't even remember my syllabus. I can't pull it out, but I can show some of the textbooks that we were required to use. This was for our academic intervention course. It's called Academic Skills Problems. Really big doozy is the biological psychology book that went along with our physical basis of psychology and physical basis of behavior. Super big, and I'm also looking through it because I'm still studying for my licensing exam, which we're not even going to get that deep into that. This is the DSM-5, and I'm sure most people, if you are interested in psychology or counseling, you're probably very well aware of what this book is. When I was in school, it was actually the 4, so this came out after, but obviously this is the most. Actually, no, there's also a revised one now, but this is the main one that is being currently used. The Lifespan. This is a book on developmental psychology. Child growth and development. This is actually a series of different articles that talk about different aspects of brain development and psychology in children. It's really about child psychology. This is a book about ethics and law for school psychologists. You will be required to learn about the American Psychological Association Code of Ethics, as well as the National Association of School Psychologists Code of Ethics. This was, I believe, in one of my counseling courses. It's about behavior change and modification, maybe behavior intervention. I can't really remember which class this was for, but it had something to do with behavior. And it talks about different aspects of reinforcement and probably behavior intervention. Yeah, this is all about intervention. Whew, almost there. And this is about family therapy. So, I forgot. I did have to take a course on family therapy when I was in school. I don't see where I had to take a family therapy course, unless it was looped into one of my one of the other classes about cultural diversity. But we definitely did a lot on family therapy. So I can't remember where and why that took place, but whatever. So that was just kind of an introduction. Who knows? Your textbooks probably will look totally different now. We also had textbooks on skilled helpers, and that was basically an introduction into counseling. And that was on Kindle, so I purchased that on Kindle. I didn't get the hard copy, which I kind of wish I did. Yeah, so, you learn a lot about how the brain works and how, biology impacts behavior and how behavior impacts society and how expectations are linked into all of that. We learn about different approaches to therapy. We learn about, so we learn a lot about therapy, but a lot of the emphasis is also on the academic side of things. It's also on the cognitive side of things, because as a school psychologist, the main focus is on learning and what will help a child function the best in a school setting, in a learning environment. So those are the academic requirements. Now moving on to the state requirements in New York, I put so much focus on the academic aspect of things because most accredited programs are not going to have you complete all this work only to not qualify. So the way it's set up, you kind of just slide right into those state requirements because it's all there. They set it up so that you are meeting state requirements along the way. So you have to have 60 semester hours of applicable college credit. You need a year of internship that's built into the program. Your school has to be on the approved list of accredited schools by New York State and the National Department of Education. We now have to take an approved workshop in harassment, bullying, and child abuse. You have to get your fingerprints taken. And your school obviously has to sign off on. There's a bunch of forms that you have to fill out. The school has to sign off and say that you've completed all of this training. So hopefully that cleared everything up. Not cleared everything up. Hopefully that was good information for you. I hope it was a good start as to what you will likely be required to know about and learn about. It can be very daunting. I'm going to be honest. If I knew before I jumped into the program exactly how much work and how intense, it's very intense, it's very fast paced because you're learning a lot of information in a very short amount of time. So it's very fast paced, it's very intensive. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of homework. There's a lot of projects. It really was like a full-time job. Going to school was a full-time job. I mean, classes started at 8 and we were done at 4 in the afternoon, unless we had practicum, and then we were done at 8 p.m. So you're signing up for a lot, but I will say that it's worth it because when you come out of it, you are a specialist. You are a specialist in your field. The actual degree that I received before my doctorate was Master of Arts with a certificate, MACAS. Oh, with a certificate of advanced study. So you are a master's with a certificate of advanced study, and you are a specialist in whatever field you occupy. So when you get there, you are the only one who can do what you do. And that's a big deal. I mean, unless there are other psychologists. And I did work in a school where there were like 8 school psychologists, and that was awesome because we were still the specialists, but you were specialists within a community. That was cool. But no, it does pay out. It pays off. And I'm saying this as somebody who is preparing to take the EPPP for the 3rd time. As frustrated and annoying as I am to have to go through this process, I still wouldn't go in any other direction. So hope that puts a little bit more heat behind it. But make sure it's for you. Make sure it's something that you want to do. And that's really the biggest thing. If it's something that you want to do and you can see purpose in it and you can kind of see on the other side where this will possibly take you, then absolutely go for it. I'll see you soon. Thanks so much.